And so Urban Meyer is joining us. By the way, also played football at Cincinnati, minor leaguer for the Braves. Well, what position did you play as a baseball player? Well, let me guess. You're a big guy. You were third base.
Actually, a shortstop, but played a little bit of third, but a shortstop.
Yeah. Could you hit?
That was a problem. That's why I got into football. The fastballs got real fast, and aluminum bats went to wooden bats.
It's funny about teams now gathering information on players. You're one of the best recruiters that's ever done this. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, Urban, if you're in the NFL and you don't get the second and third and fourth interview, but I got 3 years of tape, I got the Senior Bowl, I got the Combine, how problematic could this be?
This could be very problematic, and I've never had time to really study it. I have time now and actually have done some research on the draft and how teams acquire talent, and how do you do that? You gather information, and the NFL Combine is a great event. It's turned into an event. It's televised. They actually moved it to evening, and the drills and those type of things, but the real good organizations and real thorough general managers and scouting departments and coaches love the on-campus pro day because you're surrounded. It's like a coach going in to recruit, for example, like a St. Thomas Aquinas, St. Xavier High School. You go into that school and you meet with the secretaries, you meet with the trainers, you meet with the assistant trainer, because you need to find out about everything about this person and do they fit the criteria. Then that's where just over the years, these last year and a half, I've been really studying, and the teams that do very well in the NFL draft are the ones that really saturate their time and find out all you can about the prospect. The ones that don't, there's, believe it or not, there's some organizations out there I never really met when I was at Florida and at Ohio State, other than a scout or two, not the general manager, not the assistant general manager, and certainly not the coaching staff. And those are the ones that kind of struggle in the process.
Did you ever, when you were recruiting, you've had so many guys go to the NFL, Zeke, Michael Thomas, Cam Newton, Bosa, Ryan Shazier. I remember back in Utah, you had Eric Weddle, Alex Smith. You've had a lot of different guys, right? Did you ever, in your process, because this is about talent accumulation, did you ever go to a high school and you really liked a player, and after talking to people at the high school, you called your staff and said, we're out? He doesn't work for us. He's not. Does that happen a lot?
Certainly does. It happens quite a bit, especially, if a kid comes from a great high school program, and I know the coach, those aren't very long visits because we have a very frank conversation. But you go recruit someone from a very bad program, a very, very bad environment, and you're just not here. You're there to recruit, but you're also there to gather information. And a lot of times the assistant coaches are the ones that do the floor work, the work out in front. And if we just can't find that information, I'll go myself and we'll spend time there. And I'd say, that's 25% of the time you'll walk away, especially from bad programs, and say, we're just not going to take a chance right now on this. Yeah. And so that absolutely happens.
It's funny, Urban. The draft is coming up in 3 weeks. Obviously, a kid like Ezekiel Elliott, it's pretty easy. Even I can say, yeah, it's going to work in the NFL. He can. That's a rare talent. A Lattimore, the corner for the Saints. You're just like, okay, that guy's obviously. I think the corner from Ohio State this year, I can figure that out. But environment's interesting, Urban. I'm sure you recruited people to Utah, Florida, Ohio State, where they were good high school players, and they surprised you. Did you ever have a Buckeye or a Gator that were good college players, but they went to the NFL and they were more comfortable in the NFL and the game worked more for them? And I don't imagine you got shocked a lot, but when you look at some of your Buckeyes or Gators, do some kids' environment's more important, and they go to a great organization and they flourish?
Absolutely. The name that comes to my mind is Mike Thomas. Mike Thomas, his first year, he had one catch. His second year, he really struggled in college. We redshirted him. His third year was make or break, and Keyshawn Johnson's his uncle, and he has a great father. And they really, because he didn't work real hard. He was an excuse maker. We kind of sat him down and had a hard conversation. And I credit Keyshawn and his father for diving in the middle. He had a great year, and then he went on to be the highest paid NFL receiver. If you'd have told us that 5-6 years ago, no chance. So I think he's in a great organization. He's got an excellent coaching staff surrounded by elite people, and he's getting better and better. And he'll be one to tell you Drew Brees is a big part of that as well. The two of them, the way they work.
Yeah.
So Mike Thomas would probably be the perfect example. He was great in college, but he's gone on to be arguably the best receiver in the National Football League.
Well, let's go back and talk about Alex Smith's career, about where he landed mattered.
Of course it is, and that's why there's a common denominator, Colin, about a great quarterback in the NFL. He's in a great organization. You can't tell me these other quarterbacks are bad. When I hear people say that they're bad players, my head comes off my shoulder. Like, what are you talking? They're great players. They're just stuck in a bad environment, bad culture. These are great players. They're the best of the best in college. Now, maybe there'll be some personal issues that they're going through, and hopefully they don't get into some bad stuff and all that. But when I hear people say they're bad players, that's not true. They are not bad players. They might be in a bad situation. Alex Smith people told me he was going to be a bust when he went to the 49ers. The 49ers at the time were a very bad organization. They were terrible on defense, terrible on offense, and it was Alex's fault. Then he got with a guy like Andy Reid, and he flourished. So it's not the player. That's too easy to say it's a bad player.
So I know you had Joe Burrow. He transferred. So I'm going to be devil's advocate because I'm sure you like him. Okay, here's my devil's advocate. I mean, come on, Urban. He popped 1 year. He had to transfer. He wasn't very good his junior year. This is, of course he was good. LSU had the best offensive line, the best team. I mean, all these great players around it. Why did it take him so long to pop in college? Is that fair?
I think that's very fair. And I think I know teams, because I've been in a few people have reached out to me about it. And I've actually, just was back and forth with Joe last night. That's very fair. However, that's why you have to do your homework. I mean, is it a risk to take him, number one? His first year, he was just okay. He was a dual sport athlete coming out of high school, was not as developed as the Dwayne Haskins coming out of high school. It took him a few years, but the one thing he's always had is incredible leadership, toughness, and a work ethic. That's what he's had. And he's a competitive maniac, like I said the other day. So, that's very fair, but I think he's going to do great in the National Football League.
Are you worried about Tua? I don't care about the ankle stuff. The hip stuff worries me. He also was throwing to the best wide. That wide receiving core for Bama is probably better than half the NFL or more. Those are, people are worried about the hip. He's got, he's throwing the ball to 3-4 NFL guys. What do you make of the Tua thing? The hip, the players he played with that elevated him.
I was actually on 2 phone calls recently, and his name came up when they were asking my thoughts on him. And Nick Bosa blew his ACL out his senior year in high school. J.K. Dobbins broke his ankle, never played more than 1 snap his senior in high school. So you have to do your due diligence, you have to do your work, but injuries are part of the game. So I don't know the extent of his injury in his hip, but when you start saying the word hip, that is a concern. But they say he has all the intangible values. They're going to go. This really hurt teams as far as looking at a guy like Tua, because they needed that pro day to get to spend time with him, make sure he's healthy, and you're not allowed to do that. So the concern, once again, is legitimate. But like I said, Nick Bosa and J.K. Dobbins, they had really terrible injuries. We still recruited them after we did had to meet with the doctors and did all the homework on them. So, yes, it's a concern, and I just don't know the extent.
You look at college football. I'm not going to make any proclamations here. There are some signs the virus, social distancing is absolutely working. There's no question it's working in the United States. You're seeing some factors play out. And we're not doctors. I think there will be a college football season. So let's pretend there will be in September. But maybe it's abridged a little bit. How much time would you need as a college football coach to get your team ready for a season and feel the safety of the players? He's had enough hitting that you would feel good sending a 19-year-old kid out on the field and he's prepared.
Well, I've done this research with our strength coach at Ohio State many, many years. It goes all the way back to my first time as a head coach because you weren't able to work with them in the summer like you are now.
Yeah.
8 weeks is the number that it takes a group to get ready to go to training camp. 8 weeks of training. And that starts off with the baseline training, which is more distance running, all the way up to sprinting and getting, ready for actual camp shape. And then, the 28 practices, 29 practices you're allowed to have. Anything less than that, you got to really start having conversations about, is it safe? And I think I'm like you. I guess I'm going to be more positive, have a positive voice out there saying we will have college football, we will have NFL football. But when you start getting around that 8-week window, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's like July. That's June, late June, early July. People forget this. It's not just practice. You need these guys tight, ready to go as they go into the summer heat and start hitting. You've been such a good broadcaster so quickly. You adapted to it, and you could absolutely coach if you wanted to at any level. There's no question about that. Coaches usually say, I kind of miss being around the guys. But you've always had kind of an intellectual bent for this game. I always wonder with you, Urban, is intellectually developing offenses, being clever and smart. I always think that's what you miss. So as honestly as you can, and I hope you stay in broadcasting forever, what part of it to you, now you're just the assistant athletic director, you're just a big suit up there with a fancy tie on. What part do you miss the most of coaching?
I missed, without question, the players, the development. Watching a guy like Paris Campbell, to see his identifying his weaknesses and making them a strength, and see it come to fruition. I miss that terribly, but I also get the experience, and now I'm still around Ohio State football and watch what Coach Day and his staff does. I'm around them, and so I miss that. But and then I do miss the other part of the execution. I go back, Dan Mullen and I had a nice conversation the other day about the evolution of the spread offense in that meeting room in Bowling Green, Ohio in 2001. That's as much fun, and we both agreed, probably coaching Utah, that 2014, doing things that really had never been done.
Yeah.
That was as much fun as we've ever had.
Yeah. I remember those teams. They were beating Pac-10 teams. I think you guys beat Cal, you beat Oregon, and everybody was like, who's Urban Meyer? And and I remember going on the air. I was a Portland broadcaster. I said, this dude is running an offense that nobody can figure out. And, God, what a career you've had. Urban Meyer, now the assistant athletic director at Ohio State, broadcaster for Fox College Football. Coach, good talking to you.
Always good talking to you, Colin. Take care, man.
You bet. Yeah, I remember it well. They were running this quirky stuff that nobody could figure out. No, everybody was like, what? It was this weird flex thing, and the quarterback was running, and it was. I can remember it really well, sitting there watching Utah Utes football with my buddies and be like, this is hard to figure out. It was a lot of movement. The quarterback moved a lot. It was like a combination of three different offenses, one from the 70s, one from the 80s, and one that you'd never seen. It's almost like when LeBron came out. People were like, oh, he's Michael. And you're like, no, he's not Michael. Well, he's Magic. He's not really Magic. It was a little Magic and a little Michael, and then 35%. I've never seen anything like this before. That was Urban's offense. It was revolutionary. You'd never seen anything quite like it. Now it's duplicated everywhere. Joy Taylor with the news. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.